Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Today we'll discuss a halacha in connection with this week's Parshas Bereshis. After the story of the Eitz Adas, Hashem hands down the punishments to the Nachash, to Chava, and to Adam. And to Adam he says, Ki shamate l'kel ishtecha, that you listen to the voice of your wife. V'toichal min ha'etz asher tzivisicha leimer, and you ate from this tree that I told you, I commanded you not to, lo yisaychal mimenu. So there's a beautiful taich from the Talmud, from the Avi Nezer, that says, what does the word leimer mean here? She says a person has to train himself that continuously he has to chazer over what Hashem permits and what is prohibited, what is mutar and what is asur. The leimer is what keeps a person away from doing not good. And Adam Arishan's fault was that I told you leimer, I told you can chazer over, not to eat, not to eat, not to eat. And you did not do it, and that's what caused you to fall. And therefore, the Nachman al-Atlan, the curse is Arura Adama Bavurecha Bi'itzavein Techalena Kol Yemei Chayecha. The earth will be cursed, the land will be cursed, and you'll have to toil all your life to enjoy some of the produce of the ground. Further on, the pasuk says, "V'zeh asapecha toichel lechem." Only with the sweat of your face, with hard work, you'll be able to produce and eat the bread that comes from the ground. Now the Das Kenim Bali HaTaisva says, Nimtza b'Sefer Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, it's found in the Sefer Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, Shazu HaKalola, that the second Kalola of V'zeh Asapecha Teichel Lechem, Ein Miskayemes El Ba'ivdei Adama, that only it's applicable, only applies to the farmers or those who work in the field. But V'loi b'Melachim V'Sarim, not to kings or special people, they will not be. They will not have this kalala. Avo be'etzev tildi banim, but the kalala that Hashem gave to Chava, that was through suffering, only through hard child labor, she will give birth to children. Miskayemes b'chol anashim. That will apply. That will apply to any woman. And the reason why Chava got a harsher punishment than Adam is lofisha isha chata v'hichtia. Since the woman, Chava, not only she sinned, but she caused others to sin, therefore her curse is harsher. However, other Mefarshim say, it's basically in the story from the Gemara Psachim, the Gemara Psachim says, Kashim is a Nesef Shal Adam, it is harder to produce a good living, a kosher living. A Parnasa is harder, it's more difficult, even more kiflayim kiyaleda. It's double as hard as the pain of childbirth. And the Gemara proves it from the pasuk that by the curse, by the kalala that Eibishter gave to Chava, he says be'etzev teil dibanim lashon yachid. And by the kalala of Adam Rishon it says be'itzavain lashon rabim. And simply translated it means that yes, child labor is a tremendous tsar, tremendous suffering. But you always have that vision that times will be better once the child is born, and you'll have only simchas. Whereas the struggle and the tsar of Parnasa is always. And that's why it's kiflayim keileda. The Gemara goes on and says, Rabbi Lazar brings two other comparisons how hard it is to make mizayneser shaladim Parnasa. Rabbi Lazar says, Kashim mizayneser shaladim kekriyas yamsuf. It's as hard as for Hashem to produce Parnasa for everyone, just as hard it was to split the sea, Yamsuf. And the Mefarshim say that when the Eibishter was about to do the Yamsuf, so the Malachim, the negative Malachim came and said, how are you doing this? Not every Yid deserves to get it. Not every Yid deserves to be freed and leave Mitzrayim. And especially such a nest like Kriyas Yamsuf. And the Eibishter did not listen to them, and obviously he went ahead and did the Kriyas Yamsuf. So too, noising lechem lechol basar. Hashem gives parnasa to everyone. If you tzaddikim or Rahman al-Atlan Rishayim, Hashem produces everybody to everybody. In a certain sense, it's even harder than what took place in Kriyas Yamsuf. And then Rabbi Lazar says, Kashim is a noisha shaladam yoser min geula. To produce a person, to produce a proper mizayna shaladim, proper parnasa, it's even harder than causing the geula, the redemption. Because by geula it says Hamalach hagoya loisi mikora. An angel could do it. Whereas over here, by Parnasa, it's only the Eibush himself does it. The Gemara, the Rashi says, why is it that the Gemara elaborates so much how important it is and how hard it is to produce a good kosher living. So Rashi says a person should know nafkamina lemiboyer achmi. The nafkamina is a person has to know he should daven, because it's not an easy task to make parnasa. Actually, even though it's so difficult, if you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Hilchos Even Ezer, Siman Ayin, if a person comes along and says "Chenisht," I mean it's so difficult. I'll just be relaxed and hope for the best. So the Ramah Paskins that one of the responsibilities that a husband takes upon himself when he writes the ksuba, and he says "I'm the eflach ve'oker," that even if things are going simple, and he has a minimum amount of parnasa, chayav adam lahaskir es atzmei, a person has to sell himself, rent himself out as a poil in any way, shape, or form to produce a better parnasa, because that is part of the chiyuv ksuba. Back to Rashi, the Rashi says that a person has to daven. It is interesting to note that there's very few psukim or very few tefillas that you have to have kavanah. We know Kriya Shema you have to have kavanah, the pasuk Rishon Shel Kriya Shema, and we know Shemona Esrei, if not the whole Shemona Esrei, at least the Avis you have, in the first bracha of Avis, you must have kavanah. But there is one pasuk in Psukei de Zimra that is an interesting halacha, that it says, the Gemara says in brachas, Kol ha'im Tehillah David b'chol yom, anybody who says 3 times the capital of Tehillah David, muftach lo shehu ben olam haba. What's unique of the capital Tehillah David, the capital of Ashrei, that it goes in the order of the Aleph Beis, b'chol yom avachecha, Gadol Hashem Amol, it goes through the Aleph Beis. But the second plus is, and that's why it's even greater than the capital Kuf Yotes and Tehillim, is that in this capital there is also the pasuk that says Peiseach es yadechu u'masbiach lechol chai rotzen, and that is a tremendous shvach, a tremendous praise and bakasha to the Eibishter. And in halacha it's gepaskend that if somebody says that pasuk Peiseach es yadechu u'masbiach lechol chai rotzen did not have kavanah, he has to go back and repeat it again and say it with kavanah. Why? Since it's only one pasuk. Whereas in other parts of the davening we say, just like the first time he didn't have proper kavanah, who says the second time will be any better? But on one pasuk we will be in matriach to go back and say that pasuk again. Now there is a machlekes ha'achreinim. What does it mean? What happens if you're going back to say this pasuk? Do you just say the Pesach Hashidacha, or you say everything afterwards again? So the Mishnah Berurah says you have to say Pesach Hashidacha at Seif HaMizmer. Until Vanachnu Levarach, you have to continue the rest of the Mizmer. However, the Ketzeis HaShulchan, Reb Chaim Noah says that you only have to say that pasuk of Pesach Hashidacha, and you have to have the proper kavanah and the Eibush Shik Parnasa. And there's also a minig Yisrael that b'shas you say Pesach Hashidacha, you're mamashmesh b'tefillin. You touch the shalyad. For those who are wearing tefillin, you touch the shalyad and touch the shorash. And the hezber is given. It's brought in time and hagim. That a person has to know again that the Eibush is the one that sends the parnasa, and the parnasa is given to us for not so much for Inyane Rishus and Inyane Aguf for Gashmis fulfillment, but Laman Shemecha we touch the tefillin to say it's not only for Hanas Aguf, but it's Hanas Sarchi Shema.